Alright, Diablo 4 players, is Season 9 worth coming back and playing? That's what we're going to talk about. I got this question asked, hey, is Season 9 any good? Is it worth coming back? I haven't played since Season 1. If you haven't played since Season 1, honestly, yes. If you've played anything under Season 4, this game is awesome because Season 4 added this new tempering system that made the game way better. But if maybe you played last season or you haven't played in maybe 1 or 2 seasons, is it worth coming back to? It depends if you enjoy Diablo, to be honest. So I would say overall, it's kind of a lukewarm season mechanic. In terms of what it looks like, but there's a lot of quality of life and a lot of things that got updated that make the game a lot better in this season. So I want to kick it off really quick with the powers, as this is the main reason why you come back and play. You want to mess around with the brand new powers. So this is kind of how it works. So you select which power that you want, and you have a total of 5 different powers. You have one that has like a laser beam that's attached to like a stone, and you basically have a tether, and anyone that gets hit by it is affected by the new power. And then there's another one where you can have like these like shower stars come down, and then there's one where you can throw a pillar and it starts shooting stuff. You can have one that just blasts instantly, and then you have one where it summons these little small anomalies that can actually explode when you go ahead and push the skill. So you can pick from 5 different powers, and then how it works is you then put it where your skill would be. So if my skill is in slot number 2 here, it would then activate whenever I hit my second skill on my skill bar. And then we get to choose an element. So depending on the element that you can choose, it can break enemies, different little like affixes that they would have. So you can have like fire damage, you can have poison, you can have shadow, you can have cold, and each one of these will also kind of relate to, let's say, freeze or add a dot. If you play, let's say, a poison one and you're playing a druid, well, then now you have the target affected by a poison. Or if you want to use the chill, which will slow the enemies, then you have an enemy affected by a crowd control or a chill. That way your character can kind of interact in a different way. So on top of that, you get to select 3 additional like nodes here that socket in, and what these 3 additional powers do can, let's say, give you barrier. It can give you a certain bonus depending on these other Horadric jewels that you can throw in. So their powers are actually really cool, and I actually want to give it 2 different scores. So the powers, in terms of how they feel and they look, they actually did a pretty good job. I could honestly say in the very earlier stages of the game, before you guys get to Endgame, I would say it's like an 8 or a 9. I actually really enjoyed unlocking all the powers and started messing around with like, okay, now I can try out this thing, and it just does different things. It takes a little bit of time to unlock them. I mean, for me, I blasted the whole thing in, I don't know, by the time I was like a few hours in, I had all of the powers to mess around with. I didn't have every single one of like these spellcraft like little bonus nodes here that you would socket in, because that requires you to basically do tormented difficulty, but it was quite enjoyable, honestly, to use these powers. So your progression feels really good in the very beginning, but then towards the end of the game, these kind of fall off and they become super samey. And this is one heavy point of criticism from Diablo, that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, powers again. I think the powers are cool. The main problem is that you get to the end game and there just isn't enough new content to keep the players entertained that have already put 1,000+ hours into Diablo. And then all of this whole thing just becomes what gives me the highest X damage number multiplier, and then it becomes relatively boring. So I would say I want to give it 2 scores. So I would say as far as the early game, 8 or 9. Later in the game, it's like 3 or 4. It's kind of the same stuff that we've been seeing time and time again from the Diablo team, and I would really want to say that if they just made these powers incredibly OP, right? This way we can get a lot of the builds to be able to do pit 100+, because you need that to level up your glyphs. A lot of these, again, it just becomes a damage numbers game to add more damage into whatever thing that you were already doing, because how the powers work is they release powers, they give us a bunch of multipliers, and then they delete the powers, and then the new season comes back and it's like, okay, we removed the old powers, but we added new powers, but then like we're getting the same stuff. And then on top of that, they nerfed so many different builds that make it still feel a little bit weaker. If these powers hard carried us, I would actually think that the season would be a lot better. That's why, again, I'm giving it 2 different scores. Early on, they're awesome. Late game, not so awesome. It just becomes too samey. Alright, now as far as the gameplay depth and customization, which I kind of went over how it works, I think they did a pretty good amount of options here. Again, the main problem that I have is only really powerful, and it really feels good during the earlier stages of the game, whereas later it just becomes a numbers game. But most of those players that only play, let's say, like 10 hours a season, they'll tap out anyways, and you'll have a good time, to be honest. As far as the difficulty of escalations, I mean, you can see this is earlier on in gameplay where I'm only Paragon 100. I think it was like night 1 or something. You can see that like it's just kind of like bullet spongy for the most part, and it's just because you need to get as many multipliers as you possibly can. And as far as like the new Astros boss, because he's kind of the newer guy to take down, I played the PTR and already took him down, and then you can still definitely like one-shot the thing if your build is good enough. And in fact, like one area of criticism also is that like if you're running a good build, you don't really feel like the game is very difficult. But as far as the game goes, I would say it's like super easy still. Like it's not like this actually became way more difficult as I was progressing in the game with these escalations. Obviously in the early stages of the game, in the escalations, I still never really felt challenged, but I also play this game 30 hours a day minimum, so you know my experience is going to be a lot more different than your guys' experience. But I would say for the most part, it's not going to be that hard. You don't really need to like look up a guide, how to do the escalations, how does it work, what do I need to build my character for? Don't worry about it. Diablo 4 is a really easy game still. And then as far as the grind for seasonal mats, I thought this was actually pretty good. Now I will admit, to get all of these powers and to level them up, you're gonna have to get a lot of like their Horadric currency, right? The Horadric ash or whatever you want to call it, from this season, the Horadric knowledge. It's really not that bad. You don't really need to do that much backtracking, because the way that the game is oriented around these new escalations anyways is that you're gonna need to get Obdicite to upgrade your gear, so it really doesn't feel like there is that much of a grind. I get it, you have to do the dungeons again and again and again, but that's like part of the gameplay loop anyways. So I would say it doesn't really feel like you're grinding for these mats. You just get it as you play. So yeah, I'll give him credit with that. That's good. I really don't need grind in games anymore. Back in like the 2010 MMOs days, I get it, it's annoying, but it didn't really feel painful because you're already doing the thing anyway, so it's not bad. Now, as far as this goes, I'm going to have to kind of not give it a score in this area, so I'll explain. So as far as the story seasonal campaign for gameplay here, I didn't listen to the story. I was trying to speedrun to get to Tormented difficulty so I can go to the pit leaderboards and upload that I was the first guy to do Torment on Rogue. So that was my goal, and I sped the entire campaign, as in I did not read any of the dialogue, or I didn't sit there listening for the lore. So I skipped out on that, so I can't give you a review for the story part of it, but I can review the gameplay part of it, which is a 0 out of 10, a 1 out of 10, the lowest score possible. And I really feel like in this area is where Blizzard maybe can just cut back on funding maybe the voice acting, because it's all voice acting, which is a good thing, but the gameplay aspect is literally you go into a nightmare dungeon and then you get an item and then that's it. Then you try to complete the dungeon because you're like, oh, I'm here anyways, I'll complete the dungeon. So the gameplay of the seasonal campaign is the exact same as the seasonal content, which is already recycled content of doing nightmare dungeons. So I was really disappointed that the campaign part didn't add anything brand new. So you collect a couple artifacts, you go to town, you hit the button, your character has a little progress bar, and you place the artifact here and you collect all of them, and then it finishes the season. There is no gameplay aspect that is brand new to let you guys know, hey man, this seasonal campaign was really cool. Whereas with their witchcraft season, I kind of like that one where you had to draw the little thing. It was cool like one time, but for the most part, these seasonal campaigns are what I would consider unnecessary for the Diablo team to work on. And I know that this takes time. You have to write up a story. Why is Ashtaroth coming back? And then you have to get the voice actors. I think this is a giant waste of their time for the players. And the reason why is I think what the players desperately want is more variety in endgame, more brain activity where you have to be like, okay, I'm going to run this nightmare dungeon escalation. I already mentioned that it's not very hard, but if you add more components to that, instead of spending your money on maybe the voice actors or creating, this whole campaign that's supposed to kind of tie into why these powers exist, I think players can just be like, okay, I have this power interface, let me interact with it. I think what people really want is more variety in endgame, and because the new endgame is just nightmare dungeons with mods that we had back in season 0, which were deleted because of criticism, because players didn't want the little nightshade following you around disabling your skills, you just added that back. And I felt like that is the biggest point of criticism, that was just like, well, you removed them because people didn't like them, and then now you're bringing it back as a new season. It just doesn't make sense. And then you have the new seasonal campaign, the same thing, which is just do nightmare dungeons. Again, it doesn't really make sense to me. So as far as the seasonal campaign gameplay part, because as far as story and writing, I can't give it a score because it wouldn't be fair. I skip out on everything so I could get to Torment 1 as quickly as possible. So again, I would say that area would be like a 1 or a 0 out of 10, but it's really not that bad because I don't think it's necessary at all. Just if you are watching this, Blizzard, just drop this like section of your new seasons and focus more on some sort of mechanic or like different little keys and parts for the new content with new bosses that a little bit more challenging and more brand new. I think when we get the announcement of a new boss and it's like, oh, you recycled a campaign boss, people, you got like, oh, I've already seen this boss before. Even though I get it, you guys add new mechanics, a lot of players don't visually see that. They see it like, oh, I fought that guy already a long time ago. It's like, that's not even new. And I think that that's a huge area where Diablo 4 just kind of really needs to kind of buckle down on and make it much better. All right. So as far as gameplay time here, so I don't know, we're a couple days in, probably dumped 100 hours now. I don't know. But for the most part, as far as like the gameplay time for the campaign, average player probably will take about 5-ish hours to get to the end game. But as far as like leveling up and wanting to do multiple characters, this is a big pain point already with Diablo, which is that like it's really hard to want to make alts when you have to go to the pit where not every single character can level up their glyphs to 100, especially very easily. And the progression in terms of getting the multiple GAs is still relatively rough for most people, unless you want to go onto third-party websites and then, you know, grab mom's credit card to go buy gold and buy it off of those. I feel like most people just kind of reach to a point where like, okay, they get to like, let's say Paragon 1 to 200, and then they're like, it's whatever, I'll check it out next season, I'm kind of one and done. And I feel like this is a big area that's a problem in Diablo 4, whereas before, in like Season 7, I was making like 4 or 5 classes like real fast, and now I'm like, I make 1 class, because like the progression is so dang slow, and it almost feels like you hit the wall once you're like, I got all my stuff 1 greater affix, well, I want to get everything to 2 greater affix, but like realistically, can you just play the game and get that? It just doesn't feel that way, and it still is like that, even on Torment 4. Maybe if you consistently do pit like 150s, I don't know. I remember seeing pit 150s drop like two singular GAs. It didn't like just rain down, triple, quadruple GAs were raining down from the sky when you would go higher in the pit. That's something that maybe I can change my mind on if I'm consistently able to slam pit 100s, but right now it's pretty rough for a lot of classes to even reach that point, and then also speed farming is a whole nother thing. So I think that like you kind of play like 1 character now, and I think that they should go back to where it was in like season like 4, 5, or even 7, where they let you blast the screen a lot more, and then you would want to play multiple characters versus like it takes too damn long, I only play 1 character, right? All right, so bugs, this was a pretty big issue. There was one major bug, and this actually ruined the experience for a lot of players that played day 1, like myself. So normally when you would finish a Nightmare Dungeon, you would then get another Nightmare Dungeon key, so you could just do Nightmare Dungeons again because it's part of the quest line anyways. That was a really big bug. However, they did fix that ASAP, and the servers were really not that bad. I might be disconnected like once or twice the whole time. So day 1, that bug, we didn't even know this was a bug. People just thought that, oh, they just nerfed the sigil drop rate completely, because you'd have to, normally you'd craft a couple and you would salvage the bad ones, and then you would just run the good ones. So that has been fixed, but as far as bugs go, there really hasn't been any bug other than that. That has been fixed. So pretty much though, I would say like in terms of like rubber banding, it happened a couple times, but I would say it's really not that bad. I haven't seen any crazy bugs that broke the game as of right now. So that's a good thing though, because Diablo's been this boat, I'll be honest, and I've mentioned it. The best builds are always like some sort of bugged interaction. There are still definitely bugs in the game, like different things double dipping, but for the most part, it's relatively bug-free, and like it wasn't like crashing constantly like, you know, some games. So now that we've done that, I want to go ahead and rank it in terms of the seasons. And you know, everyone has a different list for the seasons in terms of which ones were the best, but I think that most people would say season 4 and season 7 were like the GOATs. These were the awesome seasons, right? Whereas when we had like the boss powers, I think the boss powers were cool, but like the nerfs to everything just kind of felt bad, to be honest. But overall, I would say it's kind of in the mid over here. Like I would put season 9 below season 5, but above season 3. Even though I'll be honest, season 3, looking back on it, wasn't that bad of a season. But just coming after season 2, which was a pretty good season, I would say that season 9 is just in the middle. The main problem is that we got a lot of nice quality of life things. Honestly, there's like the instant like go to the Nightmare Dungeon. There's instant go to the different tormented bosses, and the progression, the way that it kind of works. As far as yellow items and blue items, This like doesn't matter, but that was one thing that they tried to do. But I did actually enjoy the leveling process much more than Season 8. Again, the powers were much cooler because in Season 8, the main thing that I really didn't like is that you didn't get any of the cool boss powers until you did tormented bosses. But in this one, the progression was just way cooler. I liked getting the powers again. Early on, it felt much better. So I'd say Season 9 is in the area where, like, if you're kind of enjoying Diablo, you will have an okay-ish time. So here is the final wrap-up and my score here. So as far as is it worth playing? If you are actually bored of Diablo 4 and you're like, I didn't really like last season, is this season that much better? You're probably going to be like, it's like 3 out of 10. It's like, do I want to do Nightmare Dungeons as new forms of content? It feels very weak. However, if you do want to try out some of the new builds, that is kind of cool. And if you had like the mindset of Diablo 4 is okay, I just kind of want more, then it's like a 6 or a 7. It's like the new escalations don't really feel that hard. They are definitely rewarding. Like, you can get more GAs there. There's also like a lot of new builds for every single class, except for the Barb. If you're playing Barb, by the way, this season is like a 0 out of 10 for you. You just got nothing but nerfs for the most part, and there's really very little incentives to do that. As far as playing Barbarian. But if you're playing some of the other classes, like the new Spiritborn, man, you're going to be enjoying it. Like, if you felt like Diablo 4 is okay, but you want to play something like new, like a new build, that Thorns Spiritborn build is absolutely top tier. And then again, it feels a lot better, but it depends on the class that you're playing. Pretty much, I would say if you're playing Spiritborn or Rogue, you're going to, Spiritborn or Sorceress, you're going to have a pretty good time. With the new Rogue item, I'll be honest, I think it is kind of mid. It's just I really like Rogue as the class, but there's a couple cool like things that you can mess around with, like there's a pen shot Azurath build, but as of right now, as of me making this video right now, the Death Trap Rogue is the best build in the game, and it's been that way 3 times around. And all they really did was just look at it and say, let's like nerf it versus buffing some of the underutilized skills, which I think would have been a better thing. But if you're like, I love Diablo 4, it's my favorite game, hey, that's awesome, man. Then you could probably give this season like an 8 out of 10, because there's a lot of nice quality of life things. Like, if you're still kind of grinding, you're like enjoying the game, it's a pretty solid game as far as the action RPGs go in terms of how the game actually feels in terms of combat. I think that we can all agree that while we all want to see more stuff, especially with the endgame with Diablo 4, the gameplay aspect of you activating abilities, it's still pretty top tier when it comes to the action RPG genre. It's just that we really want to see more content here, and there's a lot of skills that do need some more love, like any of the core skills for a lot of the cast still are unplayable at the endgame, so they should definitely look into improving on that. But anyways, those are the numerical scores. I know there's 3 different scores, but the reason why is there's a lot of different people in terms of what they actually are feeling like with Diablo. So I would say it's a pretty like mid-season, like again, when you compare to like really good seasons, but it's not like a terrible season where I would say I'm skipping out on this completely. But that's how I currently feel about the season, and that's my review of is it worth playing. So you got to decide for yourself. You know, where do you follow in terms of into the categories? Are you bored of D4? Do you think it's okay? Or do you still love Diablo 4? Let me know down below. And if you guys want to give this season a score, definitely let me know down below so I can get some feedback from you guys. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn on that bell. If you guys would like to see more, and I'll catch you Diablo 4 gamers in the next video. Also, check the pin. There's a bunch of different like builds and content. Peace out, though.